Yeah, well, I appreciate the question actually a lot. I like having the chance to address this directly. But let me kind of take those one at a time. First of all, in terms of Clarence Gamble, this is a person that I did meet a few times and actually really enjoyed him a lot. He was one of the most innovative members of the family. And I was shocked when I read David Icke and then saw Endgame to see how he was characterized as someone who was actively and covertly depopulating. Because I know he was associated with the eugenics movement, and that's unfortunate in those times. I communicated with his whole side of the family once I heard these reports and said, is this true that he was involved in any kind of mandatory or covert sterilization? And they said no. As far as any of them knew, he was never himself. In fact, he was a fighter against mandatory sterilization, even though he was very much in favor of spreading the optional birth control and so forth to 30 countries around the world. So I don't know definitively, but that's as best I could find out from the family. But in any case, whatever he was involved in, obviously each one of us is our own human beings, and as we say in the film, there's no more dangerous plot on the planet right now than the elite plot to actively depopulate the planet. And so we're doing everything we can to expose that. So now in relation to Procter & Gamble itself, I personally am very grateful to my ancestor, who was a candle maker and a soap maker, for the legacy that he passed on to me, which is just enough money to spend my life tracking these very questions and then making a film to try to do everything I could about it. But the company itself was one that as I've read about the history, and none of the family members have been involved in the running of the company for several generations, and our stock ownership is so minuscule that we have no financial leverage as such over the company. But we do have a little bit of kind of public leverage, because if a bunch of us come forward as the members of the legacy family against one of their policies, it's embarrassing for them. So we've been able to have some success in coercing them to reduce pollution, and especially to eliminate animal testing. We've gotten them to eliminate over 90% of what they were doing. We're working on the last 5 to 10% of that. And we continue to do what we can. I wish we could do more. I'm no longer proud of that company. I don't use any of their products except an occasional razor blade. They've been unwilling to go into organic foods, and when they cooperate with Monsanto, when they create RFID chips, when Dick Cheney goes on the board in the 90s, for me that was the indication. Okay, they really have, unfortunately, given their size, they have become, at least to some degree, a part of the military-industrial complex, which is so dangerous right now. So I don't have any hesitation about exposing any violations that they create, and I reach out to other members of legacy families to do everything we can in our generations to turn those giant ships away from the kind of centralized control and inappropriate violating behavior that a lot of them do, and either get rid of them or turn them so that they're actually really serving people on the planet in a healthy way.
Yeah, and I think I want to add, I think one of the things that we feel is that individuals should be prosecuted for the decisions that they make and not be able to hide behind the corporate personhood. So, inquiry needs to be made, and we can tell, clearly Procter & Gamble's involved in some horrible stuff, and the individuals responsible for those decisions, we think should be prosecuted. So, that's part of the whole move here, is that there needs to be some accountability as their structures come down and the people reemerge, which I'm confident will happen. And one of the ways I think is to get this corporate personhood thing out of the way so that the people are actually accountable for the decisions they make, and including investors in those companies. If that's what their money's doing, then there should be accountability there too.
Right. Yeah, let me mention one more aspect of that, because in our solutions process, our model, it's not just a useful structure. But the other half of it is it needs to be based on healthy principles. And the key principle that we base all of our solutions on is the principle of non-aggression, of the honoring of each person's property, safety, and privacy. So when these companies are doing bad things, not only do they need to be prosecuted, but we can employ the same thing that Gandhi and King did with nonviolent non-participation. We can refuse to buy from these companies. We can refuse to invest in these companies. We can protest against these companies, and we can divest from other companies or organizations or universities or whatever that also invest them in the same way that divestment was so critical to getting rid of apartheid, at least to what degree it has been in South Africa. The same thing can be true for the multinational corporations and the banks in America and across the developed world.
Right, and obviously this was never just about Procter & Gamble. The real problem is that all these major companies have more or less combined into one larger entity. And what I really see as the big problem is the Rockefeller Foundation or the Gates Foundation saying, everybody pool your money with us, we have the answers. But their answers are the harmful GMOs and very questionable, definitely dangerous vaccinations. And that's not the path forward. I do appreciate all the questions you put forward in Thrive. Let me bring this up, too, because the environmental component is something we do want, quote, sustainable energy. At the same time, you've got the world government level, the United Nations and what have you, also addressing those questions, and they've got a real Trojan horse where they want to use the global commons to get a greater power, something that we all are interested in solving, but not the same solution.
Yeah, that's a really critical distinction. I'm glad that you brought that one up, Aaron, because I know a lot of my friends who care deeply about the environment and have been very active for years, have been being severely duped, as I used to be, to think that the Copenhagen conference, for instance, was really about saving the environment rather than a Trojan horse in order to create a global tax and a global government and a global police force to, in fact, control everybody through the control of carbon. And it's the same thing with a lot of people are still being fooled, including here in Santa Cruz, by programs like Agenda 21, where they learn to use all the right words like, equality and sustainability and enduring systems and all that type of thing. But really, if you look at it, under the guise of that, they're stretching the tentacles of the one world government and the superstate structure right down into your local communities and taking over your environment, your water, the air, the local systems, the local governments, and so forth, under the guise of taking care of the environment. And we really need to wake up and make a more mature and discerned distinction there before it's too late.
Yeah, and I think it's important to reclaim a lot of that language for ourselves rather than abdicate because they've usurped it. I mean, they had the Clean Air Act. I remember, in our choice in making Thrive, talking about love was like, geez, can we do that? It's like, wait a minute, what happened here? How is it there are these words, whether they have to do with sustainability or clean air or basic human goodness and the capacity that we have to love and care for each other, suddenly those become, risque things to talk about or we're going to be misunderstood instead of let's reclaim this and say, yes, we're absolutely for sustainability of a conscious, aware, nature that is based in individual freedom.
Right. And so I guess my final question would be this in two parts. A, which free technology energies are the most promising? I've read a lot on these inventors. We get emails about it constantly. I know people out there have looked into this. What's going to be at our homes, on our individual properties in the coming future? The second part is, you could have, theoretically the spaceship with the future civilization and all the answers on board. The problem is I don't see my ticket onto that system because there's effectively a scientific dictatorship in place, and those seats have already been reserved by people who think they own the future.
Yeah, first of all, in terms of the devices, there's a man named Sterling Allen who runs a website called PES Wiki, PES, Pure Energy Systems Wiki. And they really stay on top of what's emerging, at least publicly. There are tons of private, secret labs, because unfortunately there still have to be, where they're not going public until they're really ready. But Sterling does a great job of keeping his top 5 list up to date. And he just got back from South Africa, inspecting a technology over there that might be released, he said, in early March. So it literally could be in the next few weeks. A very exciting technology that could be coming to market right away. There's another one people are hearing about, the Rossi ECAT device, which is a cold fusion device that seems to be holding a lot of promise. I haven't heard anything for a few weeks now, but I'm watching that one pretty closely. John Bedini has got amazing magnetic motors and radiant energy devices. And I know that he could come out with over unity devices if he was allowed to, and because he had them many years ago. Currently, he doesn't market any over unity devices because he was told he couldn't. But keep an eye on PES Wiki, and that'll keep you up to date on what's surfacing in the public domain.
That's PES Wiki, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and also we do updates at thrivemovement.com, and there's a lot that you can check out there under the whole free energy solutions.
Yeah, and then in relation to the scientific dictatorship, I think this is a really key point as well, because first of all, technology can really help raise our lifestyle. Technologies like the computers and networks that we're speaking over right now is helping us get informed and get organized like never before. But on the other hand, the technology itself is never going to develop our consciousness for us. It's not going to, we can't turn management of humanity over to computers or to any organization. I think that your point is really critical, because as we go forward, we're absolutely convinced that unless it's on the basis of honoring the sovereignty of every single individual equally, then we're not going to make it, even as a species, because as soon as the seeds of tyranny are sown by giving a few people a monopoly over force and monopoly over money, it leads to tyranny every time. And now with the weaponry that is available, even if we could muster even a violent revolution, I'm not suggesting it, but if it came to that in our own self-defense, it would be disastrous for the planet right now. So to the degree to which we can emerge healthy systems now based on the freedom of each individual and the communication systems that we've got now, I think we've got a really good shot, but we can't turn it over to some sort of elite scientific dictatorship, right, as you say.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't want to leave this planet. And I'm not willing to give that one up. I'll definitely stay. And I think this power of nonviolent non-participation is something that, we saw with Gandhi and we've seen with King. And I think that's really what's emerging here, as people are getting informed and realizing that, this pyramid structure of domination and control, while people are at the bottom of it now, impacted completely with all of the effects of it, it also means it relies on us participating. That's where the true power is, in the people. And I have a lot of confidence that we're going to be able to stay on this planet and come up with the solutions that we need. And we do our best to put those out at thrivemovement.com, and appreciate the work that you're doing and so many others. And
yeah, truly, self-governance has rarely been tried at all. Appreciate y'all joining us. Appreciate raising those big questions in the context of identifying the New World Order system and the real problems we face. And so I think everybody does need to see the film and join the conversation and follow it at your website, thrive.org, right? Thrive Movement. Thrive Movement. ThriveMovement.com, and then you have the DVD available at Infowars as well as through our website. That's right, we have it at Infowars. Kimberly Carter Gamble and Foster Gamble, thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
And that's it for the Infowars Nightly News. We'll be back again tomorrow. Stay tuned and help support our broadcast. Consider subscribing, and don't forget to check out the new documentary, New World Order, Blueprint of Madmen. Thanks.